So my name is Ossian. Was born and live in Sweden. Currently I'm in Vietnam doing a research project. I'm doing a master's program in anthropology from Stockholm University. Anthropology is the study of humans in human society. Anthropologists study everything humans do in every expression. High and low, non-technical and technical. I'm very happy to be here to give this interview. Yeah, so it's complicated, right? There's a lot of things. First of all, I think this idea of a basic level infrastructure for the digital economy. So the fundamentals upon which we can build more complex and more user-friendly technical services and products. So that's one part, and I think that might be the most important part. This very innovative, emerging technology that, of course, has connections with previous technology, but this, in my view, is doing something really new that we haven't seen in the history of computer programming in a lot of ways. But then also, I think of the common understanding of blockchain. If you ask a normal, regular person on the street in Vietnam or in Sweden, I think the first thing that comes to their mind is cryptocurrencies and the portrayal of blockchain in the media and on social media mostly, right? So then I think of the financialization, speculation, people seeing it as a way to make fast money, and people knowing a lot of people have lost a lot of money as well. So a lot of what I think about in my research is the relation between these two different parts of the blockchain and new technology that can help the internet become a better place. This fundamental level of security and trust between people. You can trust code and you can trust data. But then also this market economic part and how these two things work together and relate. It's interesting. I think blockchain is, for me personally, a new way of doing very old human things. Because a lot of other things that happen on blockchain are very old, fundamental human things, but it's just done in a new, very technical way. Yeah, so I think I've been interested in technology and internet studies and social media for a long time. So I've known of Bitcoin for many years. I know people who were very early into Bitcoin, so I've had this awareness of the blockchain and cryptocurrencies for a long time. But what really started to grab my interest was when Ethereum first started to become a big player in the market. So it's 2015, 2016. And these new expressions of the blockchain started coming out. Also, I thought I've studied the dark web and Silk Road and stuff like this, where I think the first real uses of Bitcoin on the internet. And then with the bull markets and the bear markets over the last 3-4 years, my interest has just increased with time. I did a smaller research project back home in Sweden about cryptocurrency miners, thinking about the material aspects, so the computers behind the scenes, the physical infrastructure of the blockchain. And once I did that, I kind of realized that there's a lot of interesting research implications and academic implications for this as well. Yeah. Yes. So Yes, I have. I think if you're gonna do research about something, you should understand it in its own way, right? Like you can talk to people and you can read about it, but if you don't do it yourself, I think you can't claim to really know what it. With this said, I'm not a massive investor in any token. I own a few tokens just to try them out. I have a few different wallets. I'm registered on a few different exchanges, and I trade sometimes, send money, just more to know what it's like to use these services, and not to make money for myself. And then when I started looking at Vietnam, I looked into GameFi. So then I started playing some games like Axie Infinity, for example, understanding that portion of the NFT market, the tokens within that, and how that translates into actually playing the games and everything that comes with that. And then now I'm looking into DAOs as well, so using tokens for governance. Yeah, but it's very small. I think it's at the same time that it's good to use these services as a researcher in the field, or it's almost necessary. It's also good to have a limited investment, so you don't get biased because of you have your own money, too much of your own money in the game. Because if you're from a university, you're supposed to be as unbiased and outside as you can, you know. So it's a balance. But yes, yeah. Yeah, so there's a few different reasons. So when I was thinking about my thesis project, I knew I wanted to do something about the blockchain or Web3. I didn't know where or in what context. So I started looking around the world and looking at markets and places that would be interesting. And of course I came upon the chain analysis reports. I think that a lot of people have heard about, that cite Vietnam as having the, if not the biggest cryptocurrency and DeFi adoption of any country in the world. So that really sparked my interest, understanding why. I thought they give some explanations in that report, but I think they're a bit, they're not telling the full story, right? I think a lot of people, when they read that, and when I tell people about that statistics, they're very shocked, right? Because they don't assume that Vietnam would have this big adoption. So I think this massive adoption in relation to the state of the Vietnamese economy. So the super rapid growth of the Vietnamese economy, the digitalization of the Vietnamese economy, and the change that's happened since the economic reformations of the 1990s. I think all of these aspects together make Vietnam a super interesting context for study. Then of course, blockchain is a very global phenomenon, so it's hard to limit yourself to one country, to one geographical place. But I think it's good to have like some sort of limits, and I think Vietnam is a great context for that. My research aim and questions might have changed a little bit since I came with that goal. But what in my research I'm mostly focusing on professionals within the industry, people working in some capacity within the Web3 blockchain industry in Vietnam. I think what chain analysis a lot is talking about is the consumer side, right? The people who are investing, who might not even work in the industry. I think there's a lot of overlap, you know, people who work in the industry often also own cryptocurrencies and use DeFi. But I think what my research can add to those statistics and that story is a more complex understanding of why people choose to use cryptocurrencies, and why people want to work in the industry, and how they imagine the future through their work in the industry. And how because when I talked with people in the industry about these statistics, a lot of them are worried because they see the negative parts and the dangerous parts of this wide crypto adoption. A lot of people are losing money. Many people compare it to gambling. So people in the industry see this as something that can help in some ways. Also, I think if you really dig deep and talk to people and spend a lot of time with people in the industry, you will understand how they relate to other parts of the Vietnamese economy and why people would want to expose themselves to the risks that investing in cryptocurrencies often come along with. So these are the things relating to that I'm trying to find out. Apart from that, I have a wider goal of exploring and understanding the whole ecosystem of the Vietnamese blockchain industry in Vietnam. So that's why I'm here today. For example, you are a HR and recruitment company, and I think this is as important as any technology development company in Vietnam, because you can't have a fully functioning industry without multiple parts of the ecosystem working together. So I'm looking into all these different avenues and also talking to all these different companies and organizations to try to understand how the future is imagined on different varying levels of scale. So on a personal level for people, how they imagine their career can change and will change in the future, how they think the organization will develop, how they think their community, their GameFi community or their trading community will change. Yeah, so I've been in Vietnam for a bit over a month and a half. Spent most of this time in Hanoi, and now I've been in Ho Chi Minh City for 2-3 weeks. I can't really remember. It's been really good so far. People have been super friendly, very inviting. This has also probably something to do with me being a foreigner, and I'm happy to take advantage of that for my research. People have been surprisingly welcoming, not only in the context of being welcome to Vietnam, but also being welcomed in the industry. And people are very willing to talk to me. I think that's an experience a lot of anthropological researchers have. People like to talk about themselves, and people like to, when you ask serious and interested questions in what they do. Yeah, as you said, I haven't reached any final conclusions because I'm still finding so many new things out. But what I've noticed a lot around here and in my research so far is there's so many contradictions in what people say and what people do when they talk about the future and how they try to make that future happen right now. I think this is true for all industries and all peoples. I don't think it's exclusive to Vietnam necessarily, but people might say they're doing something for the benefit of all of Vietnam or for the benefit of poor people in Vietnam. But when you really look into what this company or this service is doing and trying to understand what's going on behind the scenes, it looks more like there's something only to benefit themselves. And the opposite might be true as well. And then when you talk to people in different contexts, so if you go and have an interview like this, I might get one answer and have one understanding. But then if we go to dinner and have some beers later and then we talk more, something else would come out. So these negotiations and contradictions, I think it's super interesting. I'm really trying to map out what's happening there. And then the second point I think that's super interesting is there's a lot of dynamics in Vietnam. So it's a country that's changing a lot, especially in the technological sector. But there's a lot of traditional things that still remain. And how these two things work together and against each other, both in the workplace, so startup culture and startup work culture being a very Western global North thing with this flat hierarchy and open offices and people working in this very techy modern way, being negotiated with the maybe more traditional Vietnamese company structure of hierarchy and fixed scheduling and things like this. And then, so these different ways of enacting the future in a more modern way and a more Vietnamese traditional way, and how this also is negotiated in the industry. I think it's within people who work in the industry see themselves as very future oriented and they're building something for the future, but then they have other understandings that may be going against that identity in themselves. So these dynamics being played out in real time, I think is super interesting, and it's something I want to look into a bit more into detail and trying to understand what does this do with people and how does this affect the future of this industry. Is there benefits in having this traditional Vietnamese way of doing things for the future, or the benefits of doing this modern way, and how can people use those different modes in building this future? Yeah, I think this is super important, because something I've understood is one of the biggest opportunities and assets that Vietnam has is human resources, talent. Vietnam is producing massive amounts of educated students in blockchain technology, blockchain related fields of emerging technologies and business and cybersecurity and all this. But there's also a lot of loss of talent. People are moving abroad, either before or after they have their education, to work at companies in Europe and in Australia and other places, Singapore. The opportunity that blockchain has produced for Vietnam is something that really, I think, can and has excited young people to stay and come back to Vietnam and work here. So I think the relation that your company and your services can have here is very crucial. If you're connecting these people with the appropriate employers and vice versa, you can make this connection between these young people, talented young people, with the companies that really need them. One of the biggest parts about the young talent in Vietnam is their level of English is a lot better than the previous generation. I think this is something that's going to be really important in the future. Having people who can communicate with global teams without the need of a translator in between. So you don't have a person that's non-technical but speaks English that then has to translate to a technical person. Things get lost. In this internet world, communication is still incredibly important. So I think the work that you are doing here and other companies is going to be crucial in making sure this development happens in the way I think people want. Yeah. So yes and no. As I said before, I think there's a lot of value, economic value as well, but just value in general, that can be generated from having these types of perspectives in the blockchain industry here or anywhere. Seeing the human and social parts and taking them seriously and exploring and researching and finding ways to make the user experience better for people that use the blockchain layer 2, layer 3, layer 1 products, whatever. So I think there's opportunity for me and other people in my field that do research about Web3 to either consult, take employment. I don't know what that would look like in reality. But it's an exciting opportunity, and I think there's a lot of opportunities for these companies and myself to make great products that people actually want to use and that people get value from, and it's connected to the physical world and the digital economy in a way that makes sense, in a way that people can relate to, and so we can kind of maybe remove this confusion that a lot of people have about digital assets and NFTs and tokens. that people really don't understand what's the value here. What can I use this for? What does this? How does this relate to me? Closing that gap a bit. But then at the same time, I'm very keen on doing more research in an academic career. So continuing working as a researcher for a university somewhere. There's very exciting research labs and groups that are only focusing on blockchain and Web3 that work transdisciplinary. So people from all different fields, computer sciences, lawyers, anthropologists, economists, just studying the blockchain, trying to understand and make both research and philosophy and new ideas about this very emerging and interesting space. These two don't have to exclude each other. I think I could do an academic career and then do consulting on the side. I think there's very exciting opportunities, and I think I've been surprised that I've found more like-minded people here than I thought. But yeah, my interest in working in this space has only grown since I came here. I think, I have little real grassroots knowledge of other contexts than Vietnam, so I can only speak for Vietnam, but I think people are very open to foreigners. A lot of people speak great English. You can collaborate and work with people here in a very open and fruitful way. I've met a lot of foreigners who work at Vietnamese blockchain companies, and they might be the only foreigner there. I think they can offer a lot of value to those companies, since they often speak English, have technical abilities that might be at the company, but they can manage and translate and work together with Vietnamese people and other foreigners. There's big foreigner communities in the big cities of Vietnam, which can be great, but there's also a lot of incredible Vietnamese people you can hang out with. What I've known and what people have told me, both here and I've been to some other places in Southeast Asia now and met at conferences, is people are really excited about the opportunities and development here in Vietnam. So people are coming back from abroad, people are coming from more economically developed places in the region because of the exciting things that are happening here. People want to get in early, and I think it's still early here, right? It's early everywhere, but in Vietnam it's even more. Come here, build something, engage in the culture. Don't be afraid. I think it could be great.
BlockchainWork. Enhance your future.